You know that feeling? The constant pressure to have it all, a killer career, perfect health, an amazing social life, and being there for your family, all at the same time? We're always told to chase this thing called a balanced life. But honestly, for most of us, it just feels like we're constantly failing. So, that leads to a pretty big question. What if this whole idea of a perfectly balanced life is just a myth? What if chasing it is the very thing that's making us feel so frustrated and spread thin? Well, today we're going to dig into a powerful mental model that might just completely change how you think about success and happiness. And that model is called the four burners theory. It's a super simple but really profound way to understand the trade-offs that we all have to make every single day. So let's get into it. Okay, so picture this. Your life is a kitchen stove, and this stove, it only has so much gas or energy it can use at any given moment. Now on the stove, you've got four burners, and each one stands for a huge part of your life. So what are these four burners? They're your family, your friends, your health, and your work. You know, the big four. The major areas that are always demanding our time and our focus. But here's where the theory gets really interesting and a little challenging. This chart really nails the problem. See, if you try to have all four burners going at the same time, they each get about 25% of your energy. Yeah, they're all on, but none of them are really burning hot, right? They're just kind of lukewarm. If you want to turn one burner way up to really truly excel in one area, you have no choice but to turn the others down. You just can't have them all cranked up to high at the same time. And that reality leads us to a pretty uncomfortable truth about what it really takes to do something amazing. Success has a high cost. It requires a conscious and often pretty painful sacrifice. So the theory puts it really bluntly with this quote. To be successful, you have to turn one burner off completely. And if you want to be wildly successful, you got to cut off two. Now, of course, success means different things to different people, but the idea here is about concentrating your limited energy to get extraordinary results in one place, instead of just being mediocre across the board. And you know what? If you really look at the people who are at the absolute top of their fields, you'll see this is almost always true. Their lives are not balanced, not even close. There's usually one burner, one part of their life that is absolutely roaring, while the others are either simmering on low or just completely turned off. I mean, just take someone like Elon Musk. He's famously said he works at least 100 hours a week. That is the literal definition of an imbalanced life. Almost all of his energy is getting poured into that one work burner. And by default, that means there's very, very little left over for health or friends or family. It all comes down to a basic law of physics, really. Every choice has a cost. Our time and our energy are finite. They're not infinite resources. So when you choose to spend an evening working on your business, you are, by definition, not choosing to spend it at the gym or hanging out with your friends. That's the trade-off. It's as simple as that. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. This is where the theory gets a lot more flexible and honestly more useful. This doesn't mean you have to pick one burner and stick with it for your entire life. The secret is understanding that life has seasons and you get to choose your focus for each one. This timeline shows it perfectly. Think about it. Your priorities are always shifting. When you're a kid, it's all about family and friends. Then in your 20s, maybe it's a career season, and that work burner is cranked all the way up. Then maybe your 30s become a family season, and you intentionally shift that energy. You get to rotate which burners are on and which are off. This lets you give intense focus to different areas at different times, instead of trying to juggle everything all at once. And this brings us to what I think is the most powerful and freeing idea of this entire theory. Maybe the goal shouldn't be balance at all. Maybe what we should really be aiming for is a life of deliberate, conscious satisfaction. So let's look at this comparison. Chasing balance usually means you're feeling guilty, spread too thin, and always trying to live up to some impossible ideal. But choosing satisfaction, that means you're consciously choosing your trade-offs. You get to define what success looks like on your own terms, and you feel good about your priorities. It's about fully and unapologetically owning your imbalance because you chose it. So let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. First, that idea of a perfectly balanced life, it's probably just a myth, and it causes way more stress than it's worth. Second, every choice has a cost, so you have to be intentional. Third, your priorities will and should change over time, so embrace the seasons of your life. And finally, and this is the big one, it is totally okay to be imbalanced as long as you're genuinely happy with the choices you've made. So that leaves us with one last very personal question. Knowing that you can't have every burner on high at the same time, and knowing that you can change your focus later on, which burners are you going to choose to fuel for the season you're in right now?